plains of Bihar or Uttar Pradesh. So we should have our detachments there, rather than the complete battalions or columns staying concentrated at a place. SDRF, there is a need to raise SDRF and deploy them as per the need. And the deployment of SDRF, once it is done, the locations of NDRF units need to be coordinated with that. Unified command, enough has been said. There is a need, there has to be a joint operation zone where all the elements involved in the relief work should get together. Media management. Now, they need to be controlled. They need to be controlled, and most of the people working in the forward areas are young boys and girls. I feel that we need to engage them. There are jobs that they can do in the disaster relief. They can man information cells. They can man the collection and management of relief material, rather than getting them engaged in competitive reporting. There should be PROs nominated under a unified headquarter who should be briefing them about the entire operation. And that is it. Otherwise, we should control their access at the stages where it is required to be controlled. Visits. Now, only the executive functionaries in the line, like the DMs, SDMs, force commanders who are involved, the bureaucrats, the political hierarchy who is directly responsible, should be initially visiting. Subsequent to that, and the restrictions that we impose must be made public right in the beginning, because there is no point people coming half the way with the expectation to go and they being stopped, and thereafter there is some friction. So the protocol of visits must be disseminated right at the beginning of such a thing happening. There should be various elements. Somebody is controlling relief operations, somebody is controlling media, somebody is controlling this aspect also.
Respected Chair, Co-Chair, ladies and gentlemen, my endeavor is to finish in 10 minutes. As we know, the deluge happened. How it happened is still being debated to a certain extent, but it did happen, and roads got washed away, and that is when the Indian Air Force was asked to come into rescue. Information reached at 1700 hours on 16th. We deployed the very next day. 8 helicopters were deployed at Dehradun on 17th, but the kind of weather that existed did not permit us to fly that day. So the operations commenced ex-Dehradun in Kedarnath sector. On the morning of 18 June, like General Bawa brought out, this was the focus of the state administration. Thereafter, aircraft and crew had to be augmented incrementally to match the magnitude of relief effort. If you all see, narrow valleys, you all know, restricted landing spaces, we have spoken about, we needed deployment of different types of helicopters. The Mi-26, which is first shown here for large loads, but you require very large helipads. The MLH, that is medium lift helicopters, which can carry a fair amount of load, but again requires slightly larger helipads than what you normally get to see. Then the ALH, for very restricted areas, rotors are small, can land in restricted areas, but cannot lift very much. And of course, lastly, the Cheetah for light loads, for carrying 2-3 passengers, Casavacs, and carrying out aerial recce. So these are the different types of helicopters we had to muster from far and wide, from as far south as Coimbatore, and in the east Bagdogra and Barakpur, and from a place called Falodi in the west. We had to muster them over a period of time. 19 June, we had 17 helicopters deployed. The breakdown is as shown. On 20th, it jumped to 26. 21st, increased to 37. 22nd, increased to 45. This is the largest ever deployment the Indian Air Force has ever done for rescue and relief operations. One, because of the magnitude. Second, because of the terrain. We will come to that a little later. In the background were 13 fixed-wing aircraft carrying out various kinds of tasks to augment this operation being done by the helicopters and to bring in a lot of repellent. To our response, what was the problem? Airspace, a huge problem with the number of helicopters, including civil helicopters, army helicopters. Jolly Grant got saturated. That is Dehradun, parking space got saturated in no time. So what did we do? We started looking at forward locations. We had no place in Dehradun. We had no other place where we could operate them where support facilities are available. We started moving ahead. Why ahead? We reduced the flying time. More troops per hour. More people rescued per hour. So we looked at areas ahead with the idea of decongesting Jolly Grant 2. Harsil has been spoken about between Yamnotri and Gangotri. This is the first place we wanted to move our helicopters into. But the army unit there, Garhwal Rifles, area is very restricted. We could not have operated out of Harsil because there was no fuel to support the kind of operation. So we looked at Darasu. Darasu is a state-owned airstrip. It is black-topped, very comfortable. So this is one place we chose. Next was Gaucha. Then was Guptkashi. Guptkashi is only a helipad. Both Darasu and Gaucha are landing strips. And then we looked at Joshimath. Ultimately, we settled down for Darasu and Gaucha because Guptkashi did not have adequate support for operation. And Joshimath, we had one helicopter operating, but we had to accommodate army. It is an army helipad. Civil helicopters had to also operate. So we are confined to Darasu and Gaucha for most of operations. Multiple helicopters could operate only out of Darasu followed by Gaucha. So first when we reached there, you can see the kind of vegetation around the landing strips. We had to clear this. This was done overnight with the help of border roads, the civil population, the SDM came into picture, and through the night they worked. Because Darasu was becoming, there's a photograph of Darasu. Darasu was getting very, very critical for us. The moment we got the helicopters in, we realized the civil administration could not bring in Bowsers to refuel our helicopters. The vehicle which was sent broke down en route, roads were damaged. So, using a very heavy lift helicopter, we flew in two Bowsers to refuel the helicopters. The Bowsers came, but there was no fuel. So now, we flew in a C-130 aircraft, which for the first time landed here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, no disaster is similar. Earthquake is very different from a flash flood. Flash flood in the plains and in the hills are very, very different. The way you address, we addressed Godavari floods recently, very different to what we did in this part of the country. Now, we flew in this helicopter, the weather was marginal. I was sent on ground 20 minutes before we landed and we managed to get him to land. How we landed is a different story. If I still have time, I'll tell you all. He landed, refueled our Bowsers, and then our Bowsers refueled the helicopters, and the helicopters started flying again. The moment this happened, it is like birds seeking water. More and more helicopters, army, civil, they all started coming in to take fuel from the Bowsers. But in about 2 to 3 days, the civil administration could fetch up fuel, and this problem was resolved. We need to have a security team. General Baba covered. We flew in the para commandos from Agra, and they were lifted to Gaucha for onward deployment. Fuel having come, the helicopters started operating. And now they're operating from forward airfields, which means less flying time and quicker rescue and relief operations. On the first day, we had done 92 sorties, evacuated 680 people, and NDRF teams inducted. Army had already inducted earlier. Within 4 days, as I told you, 45 helicopters are placed in service. They were averaging 150 sorties a day. The figure could have been higher, but for weather. The relief supplies were landed where feasible and airdropped where we could not land. On 23rd June, the weather permitted us to hit a peak. We carried out 225 sorties, 3,976 passengers evacuated, and 48,800 kgs of load was lifted into various helipads. Till today, more than 3,500 sorties have been flown. More than 23,000 survivors have been brought out to safety. Mind you, these helicopters have a capacity varying from 2 to about 18 to 20. So if it's 23,000, you can imagine how much the rotors have churned in the valley here. This is a load we have lifted as of now. Over 40 people were winched up using helicopters. Now what happens is there are places where you just can't land. So the helicopter hovers, we send down a winch with one of our people on board or an army special forces guy on board. He goes down, gets another guy, and here you can see him being winched up to safety. This is one operation with about 40 people were winched up. Helipads were washed away very, very critical places. This is one helipad which was created on ground by the Army, ITBP and the NDRF. But as it was created, a civil helicopter attempted a landing and it crashed. Our helicopter was in the near vicinity, so he came, and though the photo is not very clear, he is winching up the pilot of this helicopter. He blocked this helipad. The next day, we had to clear the debris. We had to push it off the helipad from this temporary helipad, and we started operations again. This, we believe, is the largest ever relief operations undertaken by the Indian Air Force using primarily helicopters. We operated from 5 forward locations. This is the tent which we took along to Gauchar. This is all that we had for the aircrew standing here, for the air traffic controller who is here, for the special forces people who are here, and the technical team sitting behind. And they used to control almost 14 helicopters at a time. But this is all the infrastructure we could manage there because of several requirements. The challenges, weather and mountains. It's been spoken of adequately. Mountains, nothing can be done. Weather can be predicted. Predictions may be correct, may not be very accurate. The predictions we were getting was very, very dismal. We could do very little flying. The predictions we were getting were not accurate.
Agarwal, we were party to each other in the rescue operations at ground level. The Indo-Tibetan Border Police basically is deployed on the northern border, covering a stretch of 345 kilometers in Uttarakhand, and 9 battalions of ITBP are deployed. On the top of that, we have 2 sector headquarters and frontier headquarters based at Dehradun. Now, as I am aware, the Uttarakhand is prone to disaster. We have been facing one or the other disaster in every year. And this year also, we also tried to visualize the disaster to some extent. But then we are already depending upon the weather forecast. The early warning system, as we have been discussing, the early warning system available with us is the IMD. And this early warning system was functional all the time in Uttarakhand as far as ITBP is concerned. Whenever we are going for any long range patrol, short range patrols, movement of logistics, movement of personnel, VIP movement, etc., we depend upon the weather forecast. Likewise, on 15th of June, we had a weather forecast given by the weather department. We strictly followed it. On the basis of that, I passed on information to all my under command formations and alerted all the units formation. And we have 3 RRCs in our area of responsibility: Regional Response Center, one at Uttarkashi, another one at Pithorakar, and the third one at Gauchar. All these institutions have been alerted, and since we have been getting all the information about the disaster which has taken place on 16th from our resources, from our areas of deployment, and these inputs are being shared by all the formation, all the units, all the agencies in this area. Accordingly, a meeting was convened by the Chief Minister on 17th, in which all the agencies shared their input, and some modalities were worked out, and course of action was also deliberated. And knowing that things are of very high magnitude, disaster was of very high magnitude, we need to have additional resources. Therefore, I requested my headquarters in Delhi to place all the training centers of ITBP located in Uttarakhand, ITBP Academy at Mussoorie, Mountain Ski Institute at Pali, Counterinsurgency School at Mahitanda and Mountain Driving School at Almoda, placed under command of IG Northern Frontier, so that these resources are made available to me and made best use of these resources during the disaster. The commencement operation, our operation started on 16th itself. River Bhagirathi started flowing faster, water levels gone up, and the structure started falling. Road beyond Darashu and beyond Darashu up to Harsil and beyond was washed away. Therefore, the rescue operation at Uttarkashi started on 16th itself, and on 16th in the night also we got a requisition from DM Uttarkashi, like the same requisition was also given to army, and in the outskirts, one of the villages in the outskirts of Dehradun was under flood. So the rescue operation was also carried out on that night also. On 17th, we had a battalion located at Joshimath. We activated that battalion to deploy our men on Badrinath, Joshimath, Govindgarh, Badrinath axis, as well as Joshimath, Govindgarh and Hemkund Sahib axis. So these rescue activities started on 17th. Kedarnath axis, this was the most affected part. 16th and 17th, it was heavy rain, torrential rain, hardly any movement could be made by land route as well as by air. Therefore, we kept on preparing ourselves for the rescue mission in that part. On 18th, weather got clear and we could send our two parties by air up to Fata. From Fata, they moved on foot, reached Sonpriya, where they constructed a temporary bridge, lock bridge, with the water resources available there, as well as the military equipment previous armed were carrying. So ropes, carabiners, police, etc. On that very evening, 18th itself, as many as 600 people could be evacuated from that block point, because the bridge at Sonpriya was washed away. Next comes the Johar Dharma Vyas. This is the Kumaon area. This area was cut off for most of the time. And the good part was that it was not that devastating as compared to what it had happened at Kedarnath axis. So these Johar Dharma Vyas valleys, we have 2 battalions ITBP deployed in this area on a border guarding road. All the villages in these valleys are along the side of the deployment ITBP. Therefore, immediate relief could be provided by ITBP to them within our own resources. Our communication equipments were used. They did not have any system of communication. We have our HF communication system in that area. Those were the only link between the district administration and the ITBP. ITBP battalion headquarters located at Mirchi and Pithoragarh were passing on the information directly to the district administration, and the ground situation was being communicated time to time.
Could you kindly make it brief?
Likewise, this is the time. By 23rd, our deployment part started. The rescue operation in the entire Chardham area could be completed. To task, as many as 1,000 personnel on ground directly involved in rescue operations in Gurwal region and 600 personnel in Kumaon region were involved in the rescue operation all through the mission. There were certain factors favorable to ITBP. Like the ITBP had trained and skilled mountaineers, then we are too equipmentized.
And we are given limited time to react. Once the bigger forces and our elderly forces which are here, they perform. So similarly in Uttarakhand, we were told on 17th to move from here, and we moved on 18th. I'll just straight away focus presentation में खाली points to suggestion I'll give. being the smallest of the forces with the strength only of 10 battalions of roughly 10,000 people, we were able to rescue exactly the same number of people which the force has. Our area concentration was very limited, confined only to Kedarnath, where the roads were cut off and we could not go there. We were totally dependent on the Air Force to move there. We had no other resources of our own. We were without food. Our food was in one helicopter. When we moved, the food could not come, only the boys could land. And when the boys could land, their equipment could not come. When the equipment came, the people to operate were not there. So we were operating totally in the dark. We were without communication. We had no hi-fi communication. We didn't have cell phone. We didn't have sat phone till the very end. We did not have HF. We did not have VHF. We did not have anything. We did not have mountain gear. We did not have shelter. We did not have tents. We were taking out tarpaulin at Kedarnath, making our own shelter, breaking some shops, taking out Maggie from there, taking out kerosene from different places, trying to cook food for ourselves. Those what no, I'm just going to tell you exactly what happened. I'm not going into most of the operational details. So the force had operated in very difficult circumstances, and when taken from here to the area where we were deployed, conditions were very bad. And I have only certain lessons learned. I'll straight away go to. I won't go.
That is more important.
They were actually, some of these pictures are actually with not many initially. Okay, now see, this is the number of people rescued, about 9,000, and this force also took the greatest hit, being the smallest of the force. Though the people were from ITBP deputationists, they were part of NDRF, and 9 of the 20 who died were the brave boys of NDRF, including an officer who had braved all odds and had gone up to the operation. This is that helicopter they were talking about. We have taken the ground photo because we were not in the air. We don't have our own helicopters, so we can do the work only at the ground level. This was the officer Nitin who had first landed, and as a matter of fact, I should tell you, he was the one who cleaned the temple first, and we had a boy who was he was a Pandit also. We cleaned the place, took out all the the mud and slush which was there. He conducted a puja there, but it was very unfortunate. He went down in the next crash. These are all the mud. I'll just go to. It was suggestion wala nahi tha isme. Okay, I'll go through suggestion. We had operational problem regarding vehicles. Going from here to Dehradun itself, we have been given ordinary vehicles from here, like ordinary bus, ordinary truck. These in the night from going to here to Dehradun, the water was full. Beyond Roorkee, we could not move. Our vehicles are not all-wheel vehicles, so we cannot move forward. So we were prevented by the weather and by the circumstances and the vehicles coming down to move. So our recommendation is forces like ours, when we move in disaster, we should have a specialist kind of vehicles which we can actually use. Number 2, we need a dedicated air support, where we need our own air support, where we can take all our teams together. We work like a unit, like any other force. We have a commander, we have the team boys. But as I told you, my boys were without certain equipment, they were only with certain other equipment. It is not the fault of the Indian Air Force, because at that time, situation was like that. Whatever was available, we were moving. But we needed a committed air support for this force. Even if my 10 boys are able to reach a particular site, they can perform miracles, like it had happened at Jangal Chatti when they were first winched down with the Indian Air Force. Then already we were joined there by the army. Then when they made this helicopter helipad. So something like that. We need a dedicated thing. Then we need equipment. We have certain equipment which are standard for all the battalions throughout India. But my boys needed a tent, which is a 3-man tent, which I can put in my backpack and I can go. I need a water purifier which can purify 5 liters of water. In those conditions where the bodies are rotting, where everything is going, we cannot purify our own water. Maybe we need a bottle like that. Then I need cutters, I need ropes which can float on water. So certain those kind of equipment are required by a force like us. Then I need communication. I need uninterrupted communication from my headquarters, which we can communicate with my force. My 2 officers is in 2 kilometers beyond the VHF range were not able to communicate. So those are the kind of things which I had put in my recommendation. Maybe it's a different slide which has come. So with that, I just end my presentation. I think, thank you very much. I think just beyond 2 minutes. Thank you.
been raised in Rishikesh, looking after the Garhwal. Our maintaining the national highways there. Next, we had opened Rishikesh, Mana, Goenghad on 21st June. That means obligatory points. That was Gochar, where the actual ATF dozers were cleared it within 3-4 days. Then Joshimath. Then we had opened Uttarkashi also, so that we could send up to Grasu. Next, these are the roads. I will say total road sector with me is 1047, out of which national highway was 647 with me, which we are looking after. I'll show a few photographs, and this is the road condition, this is the sinking, this is what had happened in Srinagar, the sand which had come. The Fury of Alagnanda, this bridge which had been damaged. This is Suravgarh problem. This the sinking was going on. There is no road in Rudraprayag. You can see the road formation is not there. Then you can see the houses there. So now we are constructing road on filling, not touching these houses because they are in distress. So we have not touched those houses. This bridge, Kund Bridge, had a problem. We have repaired that also. You can see the road is not existing, tracing the signs of road. This also no sign of road. So we are constructing new. This is the total damage we had assessed, that is seagull damage 370 crores. Just I want to show you where the blue I have stars are there. This is where the formation, high reach is where the formation has gone totally. But that time we gave importance to shifting from Gangotri to Harsil. We had connected it so that they can be evacuated from there. And priority was given to this place also, Grasu. And here also we connected from Gaurikund, we connected to Guptakashi so that we could take this PWD route from there. We could evacuate Yatris from there. And Lambagad we are stuck, this is badly damaged, we are working here, but we have connected Joshimath and Gochar. Next. I will not touch these points, what are the suggestions, but I will come to lessons learned. This is our disaster management plan which is in place last year also. How we make the detachments, this has been worked, I will not touch this also. This is our disaster management of both responsibility, Joshimath and this. Lessons learned, I have come directly to that. Formations, wherever have washed has given us trouble more. Slide thickness is easy, but not where the formation is washed out. Road stretch along the river bank is highly vulnerable. Actually, there were tracks earlier developed, which we developed. The tracks were all along the river. So we developed those tracks only. So they are damaged. So we have to examine this aspect also. River bank vulnerability assessment protection by state irrigation should come. They should not, what state irrigation department has given certain protection works. That is reclamation of land. That should not be done. That has been done. That is a bad work carried out. Alternative PWD link roads, we should now have lateral roads. Alternative this PWD link roads, which can be corrected during disaster time. What are the vulnerable points there? All key locations should have helipads. I will say construct football grounds in villages. At least they can be developed in just as a helipad. Reservoir area of hydro projects should be protected. They are not being protected. They have affected the roads. Opening of dam has to be in consultation with local administration. Srinagar was a problem. Integrated planning by including stakeholders, statutory authorities for planning road infrastructure. It takes 2 to 3 years constructing a road. It is better that there is a single window system and we finalize the road alignments, because we have to align the roads now in this area. Way ahead. State district management plan, it should be there, disaster management plan. Role each department during the disaster should be set. Capacity building by state government, that earth moving plants were extra, because we have to requisition. We can't hire the equipment at our end. They have to requisition it. So they should have that plan and they should build, capacity building should be there. Funding by the state government, I mean, because we can't make the payment to a private party. The DMs can make the payments. So that fund should be available with the state. Dedicated airlift, because that time they have done a good work, Air Force, but that time whatever requirement was ours, we have shifted approval manpack. So that time the dedicated airlift was not. We should be provided with 2-3 choppers. I have suggested that. Traffic regulation of Char Dham Yatra should be there. There will be congestion sometime, there will be stampede sometime. early warning, ad hoc tasking of bureau should be avoided. This time we did mule track work because that has disturbed our work on the roads. We should have not been given this, but we took up this challenge that time because there was no way out.
Which we can take up later. Thank you very much. Let us now discuss for lunch.
We should start this session on coordination and administrative issues. I don't know how to connect the two, but anyway. I think largely we'll talk about coordination issues. This is probably the most difficult part of any disaster management exercise. So I think what we'll try and do is to hear from people who have confronted this issue. I believe Mr. Rautela is not here, so we won't get to hear what happened in DMMC. Is there anyone else from DMMC? No. So what we plan to do is to hear the representatives from Uttarakhand first. If you can confine yourself to about 10 to 15 minutes and not more. Then we will ask Mr. Sanjay Agarwal to speak from the perspective of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Then we will have Brigadier Khanna and then Mr. Rakesh Jaiswal. And towards the end we'll have the NIDM. So in that order. Since we have started late, it's almost 2:40. We can go up to 4:30. Is that a reasonable assumption, or what, 4:15? Yes. Okay. I want to also allow people to ask questions, seek clarification, maybe make some suggestions in the process. So we'll take all that in the end. So I would like the speakers to cut out the general introductions which have already been done in the morning and the large description of the event, which I think has also been covered. So I think we should focus on what went wrong, what could go right, how do we work with each other better, which is easily said than done. Because I think every time we talk about something we have coordination problems. So can I therefore start with, who would you like to come from Haridwar, Mr. Pandey or Mr. Amit Sinha? Mr. Pandey? Mr. Pandey, ADM Rudraprayag, right?
Well, I feel very privileged to be part of this gathering here. I actually I'm happen to be posted in a neighboring district called Pauri Garhwal. And the moment the disaster struck, I got orders on the 17th morning to move to Rudraprayag. And I happened to serve Rudraprayag for about a month before I was supposed to die. Before I start, just a small incident. I remember when the kaparts were to close on the 14th of November, 14th morning, last year, that is 2012. I happened to sit with the Mukhi Pujari of Kedarnath temple, and we were generally discussing issues because there had been a PIL filed in the Honorable High Court of Uttarakhand, and the very issues that we're discussing here had been taken up by the Honorable High Court. Issues of encroachment, issues of working of ponies, and of course the critical question of how many yatris should be allowed to Kedarnath. And that 14th evening I recall, and I said, Swamiji, what is your reaction to the High Court order? Suppose if you were to demolish the encroachments in Kedarnath, what would be your reaction? And he said, I will say in Hindi, कि साहब केदारनाथ को लोगों ने घेर दिया है और बाबा को घुटन हो रही है और जो ऊर्जा एक तीर्थ से